to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And the Philadelphia Union's 7-game unbeaten run is over as they suffer a 2-1 home defeat to Real Salt Lake. A defeat that I don't think anybody really saw coming. But nonetheless, it finally came. It's here. It's done with. It's over with. And we move and live on, but it's not what we're going to do here on this podcast, because we're going to do the opposite. We're going to talk. We're going to discuss that game, offer my thoughts. And I do find it interesting that that's the Union's third home loss in 2.5 seasons now in all competitions. They lose 2 times last year, once to Inter Miami and Leagues Cup. They lose to Orlando City in the regular season, and now they lose to Real Salt Lake. And, you know, when you go to Subaru Park, you never expect the Union to lose. Okay, yeah, every now and then you see them draw, but to see them lose, that typically doesn't happen at Subaru Park, and that's exactly what happened Saturday night. And it's a disappointing result nonetheless. And you look at the games coming up for the Union. They have a game on Tuesday. They go down to D.C. on Saturday. Then they come back home for the next 2. Then they're on the road. Then they're back at home. And so there's a lot of home games coming up for the Union. But it's important, and Jim Curtin talked about this on Friday afternoon in his pregame press conference. Daniel Gazdag talked about this after the game last night. He said, you know, we've got to get as many points as possible during this home stretch before we lose a whole bunch of guys for a whole bunch of summer competitions, whether that be Copa America, whether that be the Euros, whether that be the Olympics. A lot of players in this Union squad are missing. And I know we talked about this a few episodes ago to give you guys kind of a reminder, but I do wonder, is that in the back of fans' minds? Like, are people living in the present, which isn't a bad thing, but that is the reality. A lot of players are going to be missing on this squad. Andre Blake, Damian Lowe, Daniel Gazdag, Jack McGlynn, Nate Harriel, Jesus and Jose Martinez. A lot of players going to be missing. And yes, we saw this team players step up big against Portland, and they're going to need that in the summertime with a whole bunch of players gone, because the next games, Seattle on Tuesday. Game kicks off in the 6th minute. Don't forget that, because the game was suspended because of rain. And I guess since I just brought it up, let's go ahead and talk about that real quick. A lot of fans were asking. I saw a lot of people not really paying attention, not really knowing what exactly is going to happen with the starting lineups in this game, because Matt Real, we'll talk about that here in a bit, was on the bench for the Union. The Union have loaned him out. And so what do you do with him not being there? Arreaga got traded by Seattle to New England, and we'll talk about that here in a bit. And so Seattle's going to have to replace him. And so people were like, well, how do you replace players that are no longer there? And according to MLS's match day policy, during the MLS regular season, any player in play at the time the match was postponed who is subsequently injured or unavailable due to a trade, loan, or transfer before the resumption of the match and can't participate can only be replaced by a substitute on the official match roster of the postponed match. And so Seattle will be able to get rid of Arreaga. But then people were asking, you know, what about players being out due to injury? And so Marcus Anderson's one of the players that was starting for the Union in this match. He didn't play against RSL over the weekend because he was out with an injury. And so, again, per MLS matchday policy, for any open substitute positions in a recommence match that was originally filled for the postponed match, but is now vacant due to an injured or unavailable player, clubs may replace any players from their active club roster as of the date of the postponed match on the official match roster as a substitute. And so Julian Kranza not on the bench for the Union, but because, we're assuming Marcus Anderson's probably still going to be injured. Not sure how he got injured. Jim Curtin didn't mention an injury Friday in his pregame press conference, so maybe he got injured sometime during practice. Who knows? I would expect Julian Kranza to be added to the starting lineup in this match with Marcus Anderson, we're assuming, still going to be injured. Arreaga will be replaced for Seattle. The starting lineup for the Union was Andre Blake, Nate Harriel, Jack Elliott, Damian Lowe. Damian Lowe was out injured in this game, so will he still be out on Tuesday? Will Jacob Glesnes come in for him? Olivier Bizo, Senhokai Wagner, Jose Martinez, Quinn Sullivan, Jesus Bueno, Daniel Gazlak, Marcus Anderson, Mikel Ua. On the bench, you had Semler, Wagner, Real, not here anymore, Glesnes, Bedoya, McGlynn, Raffanello, Donovan, and Baribo. And so we'll see what the Union do in terms of lineups, who's hurt, who's not. For Seattle, you had Jordan Morris, Raul Ruiz-Diaz, Chu, Vargas, Atencio, Christian Raldon, Nuhu, Arreaga, that replace him, Regan, Alex Rodon, and then Thomas in goal. So there's definitely going to be changes to this lineup. And then a question that was asked to Jim Curtin was, well, what if players are out because of yellow card accumulation? How's that work? Because this game was technically supposed to be played before the matches over the weekend. For example, Real Salt Lake, even though they didn't start him, he wasn't on the bench. But, let's say Stephen Fry, let's say that Stephen Fry started this match against the Union. Yes, I know he didn't start, but he got a red card over the weekend for Seattle. So then, does he still get to play against the Union? The rules really weren't clear, and so Jim Curtin said that there was a talk after his press conference on Friday in regards to, yellow card accumulations, what if a player has a red card, etc. And so, luckily, we don't have to deal with that situation, I don't believe. At least on the Union's side of things, I believe they don't have any players that are potentially going to miss this game because of yellow card accumulations. Like I said, Stephen Fry got that red card against DC United over the weekend, which, by the way, DC United won that game. And Seattle not been playing great. And so I'll highlight that in my match preview article that should be out maybe later tonight, Tuesday morning for you guys. Go ahead and give you guys a recap of the game we're about to talk about here on the podcast, and then maybe a little quick tidbit on the Seattle game that's coming up. But Stephen Fry, not on the bench, not in the starting lineup, so don't really have to worry about that situation. But yeah, since I brought up the Seattle game, might as well have brought it up here. But we have a lot of news to get to. We have my thoughts on this weekend's game, and I get it, guys. These episodes aren't the best to listen to, just like the goals breakdown video aren't the best to watch when the Union lose. I get it, but I appreciate you guys sticking around and listening to me just rant, give my thoughts on a whole bunch of different topics. But without further ado, let's get straight into the news. All right, first off, we'll start with the Columbus Crew, and head coach Wilfried Nancy have agreed to a contract extension. With Columbus, he owns a record of 24, 10, and 14 overall in MLS with Columbus, with a 5-1-0 mark in the postseason, including MLS Cup with last year's victory over LAFC. Wilfried Nancy and Columbus defeated Monterrey last weekend in the first leg of the CONCACAF Champions Cup semifinals 2-1 at Lower.com Field. Forgot the name of the stadium there for a second. I almost said Geodis Park, but no, that's not it at all. Nashville plays there, of course. But yeah, so you had Columbus beat Monterrey last Wednesday. They head to Mexico this upcoming Wednesday with a 2-1 aggregate victory, or lead, I should say. And so Columbus are the last hope alive for MLS, but we know as Union fans, we don't want Columbus winning. We want Monterrey winning, because if Monterrey win the whole CONCACAF Champions Cup, that means that the Union would make the FIFA Club World Cup competition, which Jim Curtin talked about a few weeks ago and said, this is huge for the club. We're all fans. We're all rooting for Monterrey, because Jim Curtin said all participating clubs, regardless of where they finish, they get $50 million. $50 million for participating in this competition. Well, that's huge. I mean, can you imagine what the Union would do with $50 million? And some of you guys are saying, yeah, they'd build more soccer fields. They wouldn't buy more players. They'd buy more soccer fields. Maybe they'd pave the lot, because we all know that those lots need to be paved. But you guys are thinking, yeah, there's no way they invest any of that money into the first team. So $50 million, I mean, that's a hell of a lot of money. And so, yes, as good as it is to see Columbus be a good representation of MLS, do not need them winning this game against Monterrey if we want to see the Union get into the FIFA Club World Cup, which would be a tremendous honor for the club. And yeah, I know some people would say, they're not deserving. But if you look at what they've done the last 5 years, their ranking in FIFA says otherwise. And so we need a Monterrey victory in the CONCACAF Champions Cup if we want to see the Union in the 2025 FIFA Club World Cup. Moving on, though, let's go ahead and talk about everything that's not Union news. Let's get the easy stuff out of the way. The San Jose Earthquakes have acquired number 10 Hernán López from Godoy Cruz in Argentina. San Jose are paying a reported $6 million fee. It will be a DP deal. This is a huge move for San Jose, a club that typically doesn't spend a lot of money, a club that's been a disappointment so far this season in MLS. And they tied over the weekend against Nashville, who's been god-awful. 1-1 draw at Geodis Park. San Jose, they currently sit in last place in the Western Conference. 1 win, 8 losses, 1 draw. It's not been good times there for Luchi Gonzalez and his San Jose Earthquakes. But they get a big reinforcement in. $6 million paid for a very promising player who is the nephew of Diego Maradona, supposedly. So it's pretty cool, right? To have the nephew of Maradona playing in MLS. That's a pretty big honor, and it's a huge fee paid by San Jose for a player that they hope that can springboard them to success for the rest of the 2024 MLS season. Moving on, we already talked about it, and we'll talk about it again here real quick. And that is New England Revolution have acquired defender Xavier Arreaga in trade with Seattle Sounders for a 2025 international roster slot, plus up to $75,000 in GAM if certain performance metrics are met. Don't talk about that move anymore. New England get a much-needed defender for a team that's been horrendous this season. Lose 3-1 to Inter Miami over the weekend. Caleb Porter is not off to a great start with New England in his very first season. Manager who has won MLS Cup with Columbus Crew, with Portland Timbers, but New England sit in last place in the Eastern Conference with 1 win, 7 losses, 1 draw. And it's not been fun for Revolution fans, and it's not getting better. It looks like with players missing this weekend because of food poisoning going around, and they had a couple players missing. They lose Messi, but hey, don't worry. They have the biggest crowd on hand ever over 65,000 fans at Gillette Stadium. That's what it's about. Making that money. Doesn't matter what happens on the field. As long as we make money off of this messy game, we're satisfied. Moving on, Toronto FC have acquired winger Derrick Etienne from Atlanta United for up to $375,000 in GAM, 200 guaranteed plus 175 in add-ons. Player who wasn't really doing much, didn't really get given many opportunities down in Atlanta, has MLS experience. We'll see what he can do in Toronto. It's not, a make or break deal for Toronto. It gives them much needed depth, I would say. And surprisingly, Toronto's sitting fourth place in the Eastern Conference. 5 wins, 4 losses, 1 draw, 16 points. Who had Toronto doing that good? I know for sure I did not. Yes, it's still early on in MLS, 10 games played for most teams. For Toronto, get much needed depth. Playing well this season in MLS. And so let's go ahead and talk about the last 3 remaining points for the Philadelphia Union. I know, lots of news. We'll get to the game here shortly, guys. Start with the smaller of the news. It is Union 2 have signed attacker Leandro Soria to an MLS Next Pro contract. The contract's through the 2024 season with club options for the 2025 and 2026 season. Interesting enough, Marlon LeBlanc, Philadelphia Union 2 manager, sees Leandro more so as a striker than a winger. That's where he was playing with Godoy Cruz. And so it's interesting, too. We saw 2 moves this past week from MLS teams for players with Godoy Cruz. Yes, one of them being a nothing deal, and one being a fee that the Union will never spend. And Godoy Cruz get 2 players coming to MLS. We'll see what Leandro can do with Union 2. I'm sure if he impresses enough, he's 19 years old. Like I said, played primarily as a winger. If he impresses, then the Union will, I'm sure, eventually offer him a first-team deal. The good thing about this move, though, is Leandro's not taking up an international roster spot because he was born in Queens, New York, and so he has U.S. citizenship. And we'll see how he does for the Union this season, Union 2, that is. And if he impresses, then Union 2 would take up those options, and I'm sure, like I said, that eventually I think the Union would probably give him a contract if he's deserving of it. But the last 2 bits of news that we'll talk about that involve the Union are, number 1, Jon Scheer has been promoted to Director of the Academy and Professional Development. And this is a big move because the Union decided to stay in-house to replace Tommy Wilson, who left the club in January, to go ahead and take over as the new technical director at Charlotte FC. Jon Scheer was previously the Union's Director of Scouting, a role that he has held since August of 2021. He first joined the Union Academy as the Director of Talent Identification in March 2018, where he led the club's scouting efforts that helped identify many of the Union's top academy talents. Scheer's new position will oversee the Union's entire player development pathway, in addition to overseeing the team, staff, and players from the Union Junior Academy through the Union 2. And so we've seen the Union hire a lot of staff in-house, promoting from within. They believe in their staff, and, when somebody's good enough, they have no problems promoting them up the ladders. And this is an absolutely big promotion for Jon Scheer, replacing a legend in Tommy Wilson. We've seen so many kids come through, so many talented kids, the Aronson brothers, Matt Real, Austin Trusty, Mark McKenzie, all coming through the academy under Tommy Wilson. And now Jon Scheer is going to pick up where Tommy left off, and we'll see. We'll see if the talent can continue to flow. I have no doubt in my mind that it will, because Jon Scheer has had a hand in this organization since 2018, and it's a much-deserved promotion to a big role in the team. And the last bit of news I want to talk about is Matt Real being loaned out to USL Championship side Colorado Springs Switchbacks, who, by the way, just picked up their first win this weekend. And that's huge. That's huge for Matt Real to go to the Switchbacks. They went on the road 2-0 against Oakland Roots. Colorado, as things stand right now, currently sit in 11th place in the Western Conference in the USL Championship. 1 win, 5 losses, 1 draw, and 7 games played. And Matt Real has played in the first 2 appearances since he's been on loan with Colorado Springs. And, Jim Curtin basically said he's been with Matt since he's been 8 or 9 years old. And it's hard to see him leave, but in this stage in his career, he needs to get playing time. He needs to get consistent playing time. And the minutes just weren't coming with the Union. And the Switchbacks needed help in the left back spot. Matt Real slots in there, started the first 2 games since his loan move, like I mentioned. Don't forget, Matt Real signed a contract last year with the Union through the 2024 season with a club option for the 2025 season. We'll see if the Union pick up that option at the end of this year. But again, this is huge for Matt to go and get playing time, much needed playing time. And there are a lot of connections between Bethlehem Steel, Union 2 / Philadelphia Union with the Switchbacks, because current head coach of the Switchbacks is the former Bethlehem Steel captain, James Chambers, from 2016 to 2019. He took over for Brendan Burke, who used to be the Steel manager back in the day, and then he got promoted within the organization, and now we know that he's with Hartford Athletic in the USL. And so a lot of connections there. But you go ahead and look at some players, current players on the Switchback, and they include Zach Zandy. Does it ring a bell for anybody? No? 2019, 2020. Then you had Matt Mahoney, played 2017, 2018 with Bethlehem Steel. Both of those guys were teammates with Matt Real when he was playing with the Steel / Philadelphia Union too. And so he has a connection there. And then you look at some former players that used to play between the Union, Steel, and Union 2. And that includes Chandler Hoffman, who played with the Union in 2012. Mishi Galina played in 2018 to 2020 with the Union. Zach Pfeffer played from 2011 to 2015. Isa Ryan played from 2017 to 2020. And then Aaron Wheeler from 2013 to 2014. So lots of connections, a lot of familiarity between these 2 clubs. And the Union decided to loan Matt Real out to the USL Championship. But let's finally go on and talk about this Philadelphia Union versus RSL game. And I guess just overall thoughts. It's been almost a month since we've last seen a Philadelphia Union home game at Subaru Park. And so I think people were energized, especially because the Philadelphia Union finally opened up Union Yards. And that was a really cool experience with all the beers that they have on tap. They sell food. It's a nice little hangout place. It's heated inside. They had fire pits going on outside. Lots of TVs inside to watch different MLS games, different Philly sports events going on. You had Union Chalk Talk, I think they were calling it, with Sage Hurley and Dave Leno. Gave you guys a update the last couple of games with the Union, a preview for the RSL game. Lasted between 13-15 minutes. Really cool event that they put on. And yeah, a lot of people just jam-packed in there and want to see what it's all about. Plenty of seating in there. And I think this is going to be the place to be. Of course, you have the Sons of Ben tailgate across the street and plenty of people there, but it's good to see the Union finally doing something on Rainy Street and just livening up the place, just giving people different options. And I can't wait to see what the future holds the next couple of years for that whole area. I'm sure the Union aren't done. I'm sure they probably have other ideas to continue to just build up that area, that street. And Union Yards, big project for them, finally opened up. So that was cool before the game. The game itself, just disappointing to see the Union finally lose, to concede first again. And I know I'll bring that up here in a second. Union create chances in the second half specifically and can't find the back of the net. Only one time they find it. RSL more physical than the Union, I would say, which maybe caught the Union by surprise. And some people ask me, not that it matters to you guys, what score predictions? I said to some people 2-1 Union victory. I said to one friend, I see the Union losing 2-1. I kept going back and forth with it all day because RSL, they're a really good team. There's a reason why they're first in the Western Conference. In the last 2 seasons, they have 11 wins on the road, which is the most in MLS. I mean, Pablo Mastroeni has his team playing great soccer on the road. And I did see some RSL fans say on social media, well, we played great in the regular season, but then once it comes playoff times, we don't look like the same team that we look like in the regular season. When we have to play on the road, we look like we've never played on the road before. But in the regular season, at least, RSL's by far the best team. It doesn't matter going from the West Coast to the East Coast, from the East Coast to the West Coast, centrally. It doesn't matter where they go. They win on the road. That's exactly what they came in and did against the Union. Win 2-1. And I brought it up, and I'll go ahead and bring it up here again. The Union continue to allow opponents to score first. That's now 5 out of 8 times in the league. And when the Union allow that to happen, they have 1 win, 1 loss, 3 draws. 6 out of 12 times now in all competitions. In half the games, the Union concede first. That's not good. It's not good enough. And for comparison, RSL has scored first in 6 out of 10 games. 3-1-2 record. 1 behind Sporting Kansas City and Vancouver for the most in the league. Union scored first in 3 out of 8 games. And so if you want to try to find a positive in all this, a small positive is the Union, yes, have scored in every single game they played this season. That's good. They haven't played fantastic soccer during that 7-game unbeaten run. Yes, there's been moments, there's been games where they play good. I think Atlanta, that 2-goal comeback draw, fantastic. Came from behind against Chicago at home, which you shouldn't be doing. Came from behind against Sporting Kansas City, which, yeah, shouldn't have happened. You beat Portland on the road. I think that's a fantastic result. You come from behind against Nashville. Second half, you look great. But there's not been many games this season where you can walk away and say, yeah, the Union absolutely dominated. There's been 10, 15-minute stretches where you can say, yeah, the Union have been really good. And I can go back to the Nashville game a couple weeks ago where after the Union scored the first goal, they're all over Nashville for 10, 15 minutes. And it's like, you've got to find ways to put the ball in the back of the net. Nashville, they're panicking. And if you guys haven't listened to that episode, if you guys want to listen to that episode, go ahead and listen to it. I'll plug it again with my buddy Jem. Thanks, Jem, for joining the podcast. Had a blast having you on. I know all you listeners did too. But that's just the way the Union have been this season, just dominating in certain stretches. And sometimes they get the goal, sometimes they don't. They didn't get the goal in the 10, 15 minutes where I thought they played their best against Nashville. 10, 15-minute stretch against RSL here after they score the equalizing goal through Daniel Gazdag. There should have been goals by Mikhail Ua, by Daniel Gazdag, and they don't get them. And Jim Curtin says it all the time, we're a team that's not built from playing from behind. Yeah, that's true. We've saw them play behind against Sporting Kansas City. We've seen them play behind against Atlanta. We've seen them play from behind against Chicago. Like I said, 5 out of 8 times now in the league, the Union have conceded first. And that's not a recipe for success. 1 win, 1 loss, 3 draws. And we're all happy because Union are undefeated, and maybe we're caught by surprise after losing 6-0 to Pachuca. And I'm not saying, well, it's time to panic again. I don't think it is at all. It's just one of these moments, and I'll take Andre Blake's line you guys will hear from a bit. He says, you got to have a short-term memory. And that's exactly what you hope happens. That, all right, it's done and over with. We lost 2-1 to RSL. Time to move on. Play again on Saturday against Seattle. And then we're down in DC. And so games are coming super duper fast. And it's important that the Union just get off to a hot start against Seattle. I thought they did actually get off to a hot start against RSL. Kai Wagner with a cross within the first minute in this game. Julian Kranza does get ruled for offsides. 10, 15 minutes, all right. I thought the Union looked good. They looked decent. But then RSL, like Jim Curtin says all the time, well, we need the Union to weather the storm. We need to weather the storm. That's exactly what RSL did for the first 15 minutes. And then they started getting comfortable. They started getting physical with the Union. And then they eventually get the first goal in this game. A goal that Andre Blake could have done better with. And we can talk about that here once I play a whole bunch of Andre clips, probably towards the end of the podcast. But, you know, it's a game that, yeah, it's a lot of similar things that have happened throughout the season continue to pop up. Is it time to be concerned? No, I don't think so. But it is interesting that it does look like it's going to continue to be a trend for this season. 8 games in, the Union have conceded first 5 times. 12 games throughout the whole season so far. Half of those games the Union have conceded. And so I don't know how you guys felt. Were you guys thinking, well, here we go again? Were you guys saying, well, I believe in the Union. I've seen them come from behind and get draws, get wins this season. They're going to do it again. They're playing at Subaru Park. It's nothing to worry about. But I do think it's worth bringing up now every time on the podcast that it happens. Because it is starting to be concerning. Because you just can't. You can't continue to concede first. And RSL, they're a team, like I said, 6 out of 10 times now this season, they've scored the first goal. 3 wins, 1 loss, 2 draws. It's a very good team. And I would say RSL is probably the best team that the Union have faced this season. The next one would be Atlanta. And Mercedes-Benz Stadium, we talked about. Again, I don't want to bring up things that I talked about on the past. You guys can go and listen to those episodes if you guys haven't. Or if you guys want to re-listen to what I said about those games, go ahead and re-listen. But RSL for sure has been the toughest opponent for the Union. Atlanta has been the toughest opponent on the road, I would say, because Mercedes-Benz Stadium's no joke. But yeah, it's something to continue to mention and keep an eye on with the Union continuing to concede first. And if we want to talk about the first half compared to the second half, which is also a trend to watch out for, the Union in the first half this season have only scored 3 goals. They've conceded 4. Compared to the second half, the Union have scored 12 goals, have conceded 7. So, yes, they're scoring more and they're conceding more in the second half, but we're seeing a hell of a lot more goals in the second half compared to the first. And for whatever reason, the Union just are starting slow. And we've seen that in years past, starting slow in the first half. We've seen the Union concede first in the first 15 minutes of games. They haven't done that this season, which is good. But a lot of just old characteristics are starting to creep back up with this team. And why is that? Because it's the same team that's been around for 4 or 5 years. And so just when you think that they bury those old habits, they start to creep right back up. And again, it's not time to panic. We're 1/4 through the season. So it's plenty of time to correct those mistakes, but it's worth bringing up. It's worth mentioning again because we've seen this before. And when we've seen this, we've seen the Union go on good runs, long stretches during the season where the Union play really good soccer. We've seen them play good soccer towards the end of the season. And so will those trends continue to happen? We'll see. Like I said, I mean, we're only 1/4 through the season, but continuing not score goals in the first half, continuing to concede goals in the first half, it's an issue. RSL, I thought they were clinical all game. Only 4 shots on target, and 2 of those shots on target resulted in goals. In the first half, 3 shots, 2 on target, 1 goal. And the possession was 50-50. And I know we've talked about this plenty of times in the past. You want to beat the Union, you force them to have the ball. The Union struggled to break down RSL's low block. The Union don't really have many players that can beat you one-on-one on the dribble. Quinn Sullivan, I thought, was excellent. The only player that is confident at dribbling at multiple players, a player that for sure can break down a low block, and we'll talk about Quinn here in a bit. But the keys for teams to beat the Union is to make them possess the ball. And the Union had chances. They had chances. They just couldn't find the back of the net. And Jim Curtin was asked after the game, to compare the first half to the second half. And this is what he had to say.
I thought if you watch the second half and say that we weren't good, I thought we played pretty well in the second half. I think that, Danny has a tap in, Mikel has a tap in, Julian has a good half chance at the end there. I thought that we had them under control in the second half of the game. Again, it's a good opponent. If we put one of those in the back of the net, we're having different discussions. We didn't, and we got punished. They score a great shot. Probably the only shot of the half. So again, I think we created enough to win. Had a pretty big advantage in expected goals, but that doesn't mean anything, right? Actual goals are what matters.
Yeah, and I'm glad Jim dunked on all the people that love bringing up XG. Oh, well, you had an XG of 2. Well, what does XG matter if you only scored 1 goal? The game's not won and lost on XG. It's won on how many goals you scored or didn't score. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a positive that the Union are creating chances. Dinu Gazag's about to say that to you guys here in a second. But Jim is right. I mean, this podcast is probably different. The questions that Jim gets asked in the press conference are probably different. But it's exactly what I just said 10 minutes ago. That we see the Union dominate certain points in the game for 10 to 15 minutes. But what's lacking is in those 10 to 15 minutes where they dominate, where they're creating chances, they're just not putting the ball in the back of the net. And actually, one point that I didn't really think about until right now, and I didn't have this in my notes, where we're talking about the first half compared to the second. A lot of times, and I'll go back to the Nashville game, I said to Jim when the Union were losing, I said, yeah, well, Jim Curtin's mindset's always to get to the halftime, to not concede. If you concede 1, and then we go for it in the second half. But that's kind of been the mindset, too, at Subaru Park, I feel like. And some people would call it cowardly. Okay, fair. And especially when you're at home, go for it. And back in 2022, man, the Union were just scoring for fun in the first half. And that's not been the case. And again, I know we're 1/4 through the season, and I'll keep repeating that. Don't panic, people. I'm not trying to sound like I'm panicking. But why is this team, and this was their 3rd game at Subaru Park this season? We'll see what happens the next 6-7 games. We're 5 of those, I believe, are at home. Sorry, not looking at the schedule, but the Union play for sure more home games than they do road games these next couple games. And so maybe that's something we can talk about. Okay, are the Union scoring goals in the first half in Subaru Park? If they're not doing it on the road, fine, because they are getting goals in the second half on the road. But you've got to start scoring goals in the first half at Subaru Park. And so that's something to pay attention to on Tuesday against Seattle. I know we're 6 minutes through the game already, but did the Union get a goal in the first 45 minutes? What do you guys think? Yes, no, maybe? You guys are saying no. I feel like you guys are definitely saying no with the lineup that the Union have to play. You guys are definitely saying no, because I think I'm saying no as well. So if majority of you guys are saying no, I agree with you guys. So we'll see. We'll see how confident you guys are in Tuesday against Seattle. But yeah, I mean, it is different if Daniel scores that goal, if Mikel scores that goal, because then the Union up 2-1, and now RSL really have to go for it. They have to get out of that low block. And I asked Daniel Gazlag about that chance that him and Mikel had. I called it a half chance, and Daniel Gazlag disagreed with me, and this is what he said.
I mean, I wouldn't say that was a half chance. It was a pretty big chance. I should have scored that one. Mikel also should have scored that one. But that's soccer, it happens that we miss chances. It's a good thing that we created, at least. So it's always better to create and miss it than just not create anything. I think we have to keep going like that, and we have to improve finishing our chances.
Yeah, and that is the good thing, that the Union are creating chances during stretches in the game. But you got to finish off those plays. And I guess it is a totally different conversation we're having if the Union aren't creating chances at all. They created a ton, just couldn't find the back of the net. And so you hope that they get that out of their system. You hope that they can move on and look ahead to the next couple games. And that's essentially what Andre Blake said after the game.
Short-term memory, there's absolutely nothing we can do to change the result of the game tonight, so it's either we can move on, learn from it, and go win on Tuesday, or we can feel sorry for ourselves and lose again, so we're a team that, we have guys that are very hard on each other. We hold each other accountable, so I know we're all going to look in the mirror tonight, learn from it, forget about it, and just look forward to making it right on Tuesday.
Yeah, and Alejandro Bedoya said something similar after the game too, that, we'll move on and we didn't play great, that they have players in that locker room that will hold each other accountable. And that's a good thing about a team being with each other for 4 or 5 seasons, that they know what makes each other tick. They know what buttons they can and can't push. They know that, hey, look, if I say this, no hard feelings. I just want you to do better in this moment. And so, I don't think it's going to be a situation like we saw over the weekend with Mo Salah and Jurgen Klopp arguing on the sideline. I don't think we'll see any moments like that with this team, because they have a really, really tight locker room. I can tell you guys from firsthand experience. They all respect one another. They respect Jim Curtin a hell of a lot. And they really do fight for the badge. They really do. And I do believe that this game will be put in the rearview mirror, and they will move on from it. And I do think that, this is a wake-up call for this team that, hey, look, we can lose at Subaru Park. We don't like losing here. We shouldn't lose here. But it's not unheard of, right, for teams to lose at home. And you go back to 2022, where the Union don't lose a single game at home, which is really unheard of, I feel like. But it's a credit to you guys, the fans, for making Subaru Park a fortress. It's a credit to, this team just making it difficult for teams coming on the road and getting results at that stadium. And RSL, like I said, 11 road wins in the last 2 years in MLS, most in MLS. Really, really good team on the road. Another point I want to bring up, though, and I asked Jim Curtin this after the game, is, do you think that the referee played an effect in this game? There was a lot of starts and stops in this game. 34 fouls, 42 throw-ins, 5 offsides, 8 yellow cards, 9 corners. It's a very physical game. Jim Curtin talked about that on Friday. Said that, look, RSL is a very, very physical team, and they're going to make it tough on us. And this is what Jim Curtin had to say in regards to that question.
Look, they're a tough, organized team that, is emblematic of their coach and the way he was as a player. I think he's a great coach, and they were organized and tough to break down. I still think we had our opportunities for sure tonight. But, yeah, there was a lot of physicality from both teams. The ref was consistent at least and did call a ton of fouls and gave a ton of yellow cards. I don't enjoy that way for the viewer. It's not as fun to watch. I enjoy more allowing the guys to kind of sort the game out on themselves with being physical. But he was consistent, and that's kind of it's a good quality of a referee, consistent with, calling everything pretty tight for the 90 minutes and was quick with yellow cards as well.
Yeah, 5 yellow cards to RSL, 3 for the Union. But I saw some people say, why is Jim talking about the game being too physical, blah, 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 because that's how the Union play, which it is. And I have no problems whatsoever with both teams being physical. The issue I have is when you call foul after foul after foul. There was a moment in the first half, I believe it was, where the referee blew his whistle like 2 or 3 times because Daniel Gazag was getting pushed inside the goal. Then Daniel Gazag lines up on the goal line, and the referee says, hey, you can't be in the goal. And Daniel's like, my foot's on the line. Like, please, just stop blowing the whistle. There was an incident in the second half, I believe it was, with Vera, Glesnes, Arango, and Jose Martinez just all getting tangled up, getting in each other's faces. You have Jose Martinez getting elbowed in the face. Messy situation, and the referee, to his credit, got control of that, gave out yellow cards to everybody that was involved in that play. But I do think that when there's just constant starts and stops, it gets the Union out of their rhythm. And I asked Daniel guys like that too, and I won't play the clip. But if you guys want to see all the questions I asked to Daniel Gazag and Andre Blake, you guys can check out the Substack, leftfreekick.substack.com. I don't know why I forgot that there for a second, but I played the full interviews of Daniel Gazag and Andre Blake if you guys want to listen to all the questions I asked and all the responses those guys gave. But yeah, Daniel said, yeah, I don't enjoy playing start and stop. It's not how he likes to play his game because, like we know, the Union are a team that likes to hit on the counterattack. Yes, they like to be physical. They like to win the ball back quickly, and then within 5 seconds, they like to be in your own half. And I said something to Kyle Almany and Skylar Hoffner during this game. I said, RSL's out-unioning the Union. They're being more physical than the Union, and they're not used to that. The Union are used to putting the hurt on teams. And when a team brings that to them, they don't know what to do. They don't know how to react. And credit to them, they didn't lose their heads. But I think they were a little bit caught off guard that another team came into Subaru Park and they're being physical. The Union aren't used to that. And to RSL's credit, yes, they played a low block, which I think is cowardly. But no, if you want to get a result, especially on the road, it's what you got to do sometimes. And RSL played fantastic in that low block. But not only did they play that well, they brought the physicality. And I do think that they caught the Union by surprise a little bit in this game. And then the last clip that I'll play for you guys is one that I don't want to spend too long talking about. Jose Nunez, I got him this clip, and he posted it on his Twitter. I'm just surprised that not a lot of people are talking about that clip yet. And Andre Blake said that he doesn't want to talk about his health. He specifically said, I don't want to talk about it, to be honest. When asked, how he's doing health-wise, how he would rate his body Didn't want to talk about it. And then he talks about, he doesn't know how long he has left to play, which I think is something that should, just get the attention of Union fans.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough when you feel like you can't catch a break. But it's a part of life. It's a part of soccer. I've been going for maybe 10 years strong. So maybe this is just a little phase for me. I'll hang in there. I keep pushing, and how long is it gonna last? I don't know, but I'll push through it, and hopefully, it ends sooner than later.
And you can hear it in his voice. He sounds defeated. In the video clip, he looks defeated. And I don't know. I'm sorry, I forget how much I talked about this last episode, but I know for sure I talked about this in a group chat with people. I said, with all these injuries with Andre Blake, could this start to become the end of Andre Blake with the Union? Like, would I be surprised? I think I said this on the podcast. If Jamaica qualified for the World Cup in 2026, could we see Andre Blake retire then? I think it's possible. He'd be 35, going on 36 years old. I think it's possible. I really do. I mean, what more does Andre have to do in his career? I think if he could go to the World Cup with his home nation, I think that would be the cherry on top for his long, successful career. He's a goalkeeper that's had a lot of injuries, a lot of groin injuries the last couple of years. Goalies, we know, take a lot of wear and tear on their body with the amount of times they're throwing themselves on the ground, whether that be in games or practice. And I think that's something, too, fans forget about is, not only are these guys throwing themselves on the ground in games, they're doing it every single week in practice, too. And that's a lot of rest and recovery that you got to get your body ready and right and mentally to be okay with throwing yourself on the ground and knowing that, yeah, it's going to hurt. But when you're in the moment, you're not thinking about that. You're thinking about making the save, keeping your team in it. And Andre did. Andre did look defeated. Andre, you guys heard it, sounded defeated in his voice. I've never personally seen Andre like that in the locker room. I've never seen him basically say no comment. I don't want to talk about it. And I do wonder, should the Union have started Oliver Zemla in this game? So should they have continued to let Andre heal up? I mean, obviously he was healthy enough to start. If they didn't think he was healthy, he wouldn't have been out there. But hearing Andre say, I don't want to talk about my health, he has nothing to say in regards to his health. I'm not used to Andre saying that, honestly. I do think Andre should have saved the first goal, the goal scored by Gomez. It's a strong, powerful shot. Don't get me wrong. Once he initially punches it, takes a weird spin and winds up in the back of the net. It's a hard struck ball, but Andre's got to do better saving that, and I think he knows it. And the second goal, it's a world-class goal there. Nothing Andre could have done. Maybe he sees it a tad bit late. Maybe he gets obstructed by one of his defenders, which causes the late step in trying to save that ball. But it's a world-class goal. It's definitely going to win goal of the week. Should be up there for a goal of the year contender for sure. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to imagine a world with no Andre Blake in net for the Union. And I mean, thank goodness, we've said it so many times that the Union have Oliver Zemla. He's looked good when he's played in goal. Andre, I asked him too after the game, it was not the greatest question or the greatest way that I phrased the question, I would say. The Union have conceded a lot of goals. They've had a lot of different center back pairings this year. And I asked Andre, is there any concern in having all these different pairings? And Andre said, no, they're all good center backs. There is no concern. That's not the reason why they're conceding goals. Andre also mentioned too that he hasn't been in goal a lot this season, and so it's hard for him to say. So again, I'm a little concerned that Andre gave that answer. I'm glad that it was that open, that honest, but man, I've just never heard him sound like that before. I've never seen him look that defeated. And so, yeah, I think it is a little bit cause for concern. I think it's something Union fans should be talking about on social media. Talking about, could this be the end coming for Andre, for the Philadelphia Union? But let's go ahead and talk about our last 2 points of the night, last 2 segments. I want to try to get through 3 stars quickly because I have a really good blunder of the week that I want to bring to your guys' attention. So we'll start with star number 3, Alejandro Bedoya. 1 chance created, 2 interceptions, 6 ball recoveries, 8 out of 11 ground duels won. Quinn Sullivan, 1 assist, 5 chances created, 2 out of 2 tackles won, 2 ball recoveries, 5 chances created. I mean, Quinn is definitely making a case to be on that Olympic roster for the U.S. Played great. Unfortunate to come out in this game. And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but every time Quinn was at his best in this game, he was out wide right. I mean, we've said it so many times over the years that Quinn is not a right midfielder. He's not a striker. He's not a 10. He's a winger. And when he was occupying that space out on the right-hand side, that's when he was at best in this game. So Quinn Sullivan, hell of a game for him. Number 1, Daniel Gazdag, 1 goal, 1 chance created, 92 passing accuracy, 1 out of 1 tackles, 1 interception, 5 ball recoveries. Should have had a second goal. But I think this was one of Daniel's better games. Ties Sebastian Letou, by the way, with 56 goals in club history in all competitions. 1 away now from breaking that record. And it's a shame that this loss overshadows that a little bit, that, you know, we're not talking about Daniel Gazdag tying that record, but when you lose, everything's going to be overshadowed. And so those are my 3 stars. And blunder of the week, I want to get to this. This is fantastic. And I thought about potentially making it for Anthony Taylor, the referee in the Liverpool West Ham United game. I don't know if any of you guys watched this, if you guys saw this play, but Areola, the goalkeeper, him and Gakpo have a little coming together. No foul, Anthony Taylor says. He says, play on. This comes off of a corner kick, if I'm remembering it correctly. Areola gets the ball. Anthony Taylor doesn't blow his whistle, says, play on, no injury, you're good to go. And so Areola rolls the ball out like he's about to take a goal kick. And as soon as he does that, Cody Gakpo says this is a live ball because Anthony Taylor never blew the play dead. And Anthony Taylor then decides to blow his whistle. And he knows in that moment, as soon as he blows his whistle, that he's messed up. He tells the West Ham medical staff to come out because Areola is injured. And Areola looks a little bit confused that, no, I'm not injured. You told us to play on 30 seconds ago. And so that's exactly what I'm doing. And Areola definitely had a blunder, rolling this ball out, making it a live ball. Cody Gakpo should have touched that ball and put the ball in the back of the net, because then what's Anthony Taylor going to do? It's a live ball. You never blew the whistle. What are you going to do? Are you going to give Liverpool this goal, which would have put them up 3-2? He doesn't, and blows the whistle after Areola rolls the ball out. I'm not sure why he did that after he said play on initially. And then because he blows the whistle, he tries to save his butt by bringing on the medical staff. But it's a horrible, horrible play there by Areola to roll this ball and make it live. And then it's a horrible situation for Anthony Taylor. Like, why are you blowing your whistle? There was no foul. You said literally no flat foul. So what are you blowing your whistle for? Makes no sense. But I saw on Twitter last night, and this comes from Twitter user at BritterZ7. She said, "This is an all-timer. My brother's fiance just brought a hot chocolate at the Red Bull New York game. The employee overflowed the cup, and to rectify the situation, she sipped from it and then gave it to her." She sipped from the cup. The employee sipped from the cup. What are we doing?
Yeah, not good.
Not good at all. Like, I want to know what goes through the mind of somebody to say, yeah, I overflowed your cup, so I'm going to go ahead and take a sip out of it. An employee. Like, I cannot fathom the mindset. I don't understand the mindset. And I joked on social media that I would love for somebody to tell me who this employee is so I can just interview them and say, hey, look, what was your thinking on this? Why would you drink from this cup and then proceed to give it to the customer? It's like spitting in somebody's cup and then handing it to them. Because that definitely happens at restaurants, right? When people are a jerk to the servers, you know they're going back there and spitting in your drinks. So don't be rude to your servers. But to do it in front of the customer, to take a sip from it, what? Like, why? Like, how hard is it to pour out some of the hot chocolate, wipe the cup down from the hot chocolate, and then hand it to the customer? Like, how hard is that? You sip from it? How is that your first reaction? I could never do that. I would love to know. Like, I hope that this woman did not accept this cup. Like, I hope that she said, nope, you are giving me a completely different drink because that is clearly yours. You took a drink from it. I don't want to get your germs. What are we doing? Seriously, what are we doing? Oh, dude, I wish somebody would have had a video of this whole situation. I would love to include a video of this. That had to have been such an awkward exchange between all parties involved. I wonder if anything like this has ever happened to any of you guys. Let me know in the comment section on Twitter or Instagram. That's where you guys can reach me. Speaking of that, if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow @FreeKickPod. Wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick. You can check out my personal Instagram handle at It's a Todd's Life _ on Twitter. It's a Todd's Life. Like I said, wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick. I appreciate all you guys that listen to the podcast on Substack. You guys don't have to if you don't want to. You know, it's on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you guys get podcasts. If you guys want to check out the Substack, it's thefreekick.substack.com. Check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/freekickpod for the latest goals breakdown videos. But going to be a lot of content here for you guys the next couple days with another podcast coming out, I'd imagine Wednesday night, Thursday morning to review the Seattle game. Then we have the DC game on Saturday. And so definitely want to get some articles out there for you guys. Of course, there's going to be goals breakdown videos and whatnot. So a lot of content. You guys, I know, are loving that. A lot of content for you guys to consume. And there's just a lot of people doing union content, a lot of stuff for you guys to enjoy. And it's a great time to be Union fans, just with all the podcasts, all the people that are writing. It's a good time, whether or not the Union lose or not. It's a good time to just see so many people dedicated and spending their time covering this team that we all deeply care about, that we all love, regardless of the results. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.